Your thoughts on X-Men Legends, which is also having its 20th year anniversary right now.
Yeah, I didn't even plan for that. I just thought we should do this because the X-Men '97 came out, and it was only when I was looking it up to write some notes down. I was like, oh wow, this is also like right on its 20-year anniversary mark. Oh man, this is a classic. I think with one exception, this is runner up for I think the best X-Men video game that has ever been made. Not that they've done a whole lot with the franchise in video game terms in recent years, but this is so gameplay first. This is kind of a Diablo-esque game, right? It's got the overhead camera, dungeon crawler. You can do up to 4 players here. It is a little more simple than, say, Diablo itself. The mechanics, RPG mechanics of it are pulled back. There's not too much in the way of like loot. That's pretty basic in this. But you do have a real nice upgrade tree. You've got your basic attack stuff, of course, but you have these special moves that you do, mutant power meter that you use for these. And you've got like a nice long upgrade tree to enhance these things. So it's not like a super long game, but you have a lot to sink your teeth into as far as upgrading these characters. You have full access to the danger room to do like training simulations and like skirmishes where you can, this is a 4 player game, right? So 4 player, it doesn't even have to be split screen because you're all doing the top down camera thing, but you can do play versus mode with each other, all these sorts of skirmishes, big like waves of enemies coming at you. And then there's the actual story mode, which I don't know how familiar you are with the kind of early 2000s X-Men comics, but this was very much based in the Ultimate Comics universe, which I think started, I want to say, in the year 2000, which was kind of an at the time attempt to modernize a lot of the Marvel characters and modernize their origin stories. Famously, Miles Morales was introduced within the Ultimate Universe comics many, many years later. But this, yeah, you can see like the leather kind of costumes the characters are wearing, which maybe seems reminiscent of the films, but that's actually were like the Ultimate comic costumes that they did.
I think they said that in the new season of X-Men '97, they are gonna have these type of costumes. The Grant Morrison run of X-Men, they're gonna have
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
leather jacket.
Yeah, they're a little different from those. They have more yellow in them. The one they're going to be using in the next season of the show, they have these like big yellow kind of X's on the jacket, and then there's like black. It's like black pants and like black accents on the jackets. Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Yeah, so that was kind of from right around the same time. In fact, those costumes were used as the main costumes in X-Men Next Dimension, which was an X-Men kind of arcade fighting game from the same studio as X-Men Legends, which is you mentioned them because it's a great studio that did a lot of Marvel games. They worked on X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men Legends 1, 2, the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance. They also did Heretic back in the day, which was kind of like a Doom style FPS, but with like wizard casting spells. And this Raven Software is the studio I'm talking about. And for a long time now, they've been one of those, one of Activision's many great studios that have just kind of been locked in as like a Call of Duty backup studio. And they don't really make anything anymore. They just work on COD maps, which, is one of the many unfortunate things that have happened under the Activision banner in recent, well, not even recent years, because it's been quite some time. But yeah, Ravens. Hopefully, one of these days they can get out from under the Call of Duty thumb and start producing their own work again. But they knew what they were doing here with X-Men. This was 2004. I would have been 9 at the time, and so I'd already had exposure to X-Men through the '90s animated series, X-Men Evolution, uh, some of the '80s cartoons, even with some Marvel characters that I'd seen back then. The movies obviously had come out. I remember seeing the first one in theaters in 2000. But this video game was also probably one of my very early exposures to X-Men as an IP. Maybe not the first thing, but being able to mess around with these characters and it's the trouble with a lot of superhero games. Something like, say, the Avengers from 2020, I think really suffered from. You try and put a lot of these characters in one game with each other, and it can suffer because, well, they all have different powers, and you want to make them feel different to play as. And something like the Avengers really struggled with that because it's trying to give you this, like, you know, game where you are third person behind the camera or behind the shoulder camera, and you're picking one character and you're going out, and then but because you have to have all these other characters playable, a lot of them end up kind of feeling samey. The gameplay mechanics don't feel like built around unique individual characters' powers. I think X-Men Legends is maybe the greatest, and well, except for I think the sequel is a superior game, but the greatest formula for doing a team superhero game like the X-Men, because the dungeon crawler kind of top-down perspective that this game is going with allows you to differentiate the powers of the characters, and yes, have the basic control scheme kind of be the same across them, but it allows there to be a differentiation in their special abilities to where they do still feel different. You don't get that sameness from playing picking a bunch of the different characters. And the roster I think is only 15 characters in this one. It's not a huge number, but
Um,
hey, you got to start somewhere.
so the playbook characters, you got Beast, Colossus, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Gambit, Iceman, Jean Grey, Jubilee, Magma, Nightcrawler, Professor X, Psylocke, Rogue, Storm, and Wolverine. The characters.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with Magma. I'm not too familiar.
So that's interesting because that's kind of your POV character in this game. So it starts off opening level. You're Wolverine here, right? Kicks you into and this marks Steve the first time I believe that Steve Bloom voiced Wolverine in something, and obviously he's gone on to voice Wolverine in a ton of stuff since. But this started his career as the character. But yeah, so Alison Cressmere is Magma. She's one of the New Mutants from the comics, and the game starts with her being attacked by Mystique and Blob and Pyro and the Brotherhood trying to kidnap her. And you first level is kind of a streets of New York. Let's get through this area, rescue this, kind of random mutant that's been they've attempted to kidnap. But once you get out of that first level and you get to your hub area, which is the mansion, you get to explore this nice big chunk of the mansion, which is really cool. But you are then in between levels put into the shoes of Allison or Magma. And she is this character that you get to kind of explore, interface with the world of X-Men, go around, you talk to characters um, within the man, tons of different characters. There's all sorts of conversation. They pack a lot of lore into this too. Like if you are unfamiliar with X-Men, this is honestly one of those places to start with the franchise in general that I honestly would recommend to people because there is so much you can learn just by running around talking to each of the different people. There's tons of like comic book covers that you collect in the game, biographies. They really do a good job packing like the lore in here and just like familiarizing you with the world of X-Men. Um, and then I also noticed too, Professor X is on the playable character list. And no, you are not rolling around in his wheelchair as a playable character in this game. He's only available during a single level, which is fighting the Shadow King in the astral plane. And then I want to pivot into that to talk about like the level design and kind of the environments here. Um, in terms of graphics, this game looks, I think, quite good. It's aged fairly well, largely because it's got this like real kind of hard lined, kind of cell shaded art style, which I just think a lot of games that have more cartoony cell shaded art style from this time period, they just hold up a lot better than stuff that's aiming for realism. Just by nature of being a little more pronounced of a style. Um, but you have a couple like you get to explore the mansion right in kind of the in between parts, and that's really cool. There's a lot of fun stuff there. um Within the levels of the game and the story, I would say the astral plane is pretty noticeably unique and cool, and then the big end game. This is very much a X-Men versus the Brotherhood kind of story. So, the big end game of this is Asteroid M is the final level, right? You go up to Magneto. And the reason the Brotherhood was kidnapping Magma, Allison, in the first place, is her ability to interface with like rock, right? And kind of rock produced from like magma and stuff. So she's kind of like a MacGuffin for controlling the asteroid M asteroid. And you got those two really cool levels. But one of the criticisms I do want to levy at this game is a lot of the environments aren't the most unique. Outside of these two that I think are really cool. Astroplane's really cool. Asteroid M is really cool. But there's a lot of like streets in New York, military base, snowy area. There's two entire separate sewer levels in the game. And I'm like, I remember when I went back the second time, I was like, guys, come on, really? We're going back. We're going to the sewers again. Like you already used up the sewer level trope once in here. So that's one thing I would say as a negative to this is I do think that the level design outside of those two exceptions, you could have used some more interesting, iconic areas from like the X-Men franchise. There's no shortage of places to go. Um, but I will say, and maybe we'll talk about this next year sometime, because the sequel, I think, 20th anniversary will be next year. That game has a lot better use of like locations and places that you go to in interesting environments to kind of run around in. So that's one criticism I'd have of this game. Voice acting, for the most part, I think is fairly good. It's not the greatest you've ever heard. It's not Metal Gear Solid 3. I'll say that. Um, Steve Bloom is great as Wolverine. I believe you have Patrick Stewart playing Xavier in this game. And then, I wish I had the name of the actress that plays Magma here, because you hear she's a voice. I tell you, as soon as you hear her, you'll recognize it from every Cartoon Network show that was on in the early 2000s.
So
Like
yeah,
every single one.
Patrick Stewart did return as Xavier in this. He did. You said Stephen Bloom, Gray Griffin. I feel like I know that name. She
She's
voiced.
Azula in Avatar.
Okay, that's where I know that name from.
And she
There.
she's like she was in like every Cartoon Network show, I feel like, back then. She's just so much so
Oh,
much.
it's
She's
Cree
in
Summer
Codename
who's
Kid Next
versus
Door.
Magma.
Chris. Okay, yes, Chris Summers. Okay, and then Grey Griffin is what character does she play in the game?
She's Mystique.
Oh, yes. Okay, I definitely recognize her as that character as well. Yeah, Chris Summers. It's like she was in Codename Kids Next Door. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing her in Samurai Jack. She's in Powerpuff Girls at one point. She's in
Uh,
like all those shows back then.
Recess. I think she was in Recess.
Yeah, she definitely was.
Yes.
Yeah, so like you have some really good voice talent in here. The voice acting is it's pretty good. I would say like from a writing perspective, it's a pretty basic just X-Men versus Brotherhood plot. There's nothing like too powerfully unique about it. It's just a serviceable, fun X-Men story. It's not doing anything too deep or innovative with the franchise. But it's good. It's a solid level. Um, yeah, I mean, and then I mentioned the some of the like the side stuff, like the Danger Room. You have all access to all these training programs, all these collectibles you can do in the game. There's even like an X-Men trivia game you could find. I forget. It's like somewhere in the mansion. It's in maybe Iceman's room or Gambit's room or something like that. But you can go in and play like a whole little trivia game, which aced every question personally when I played it recently. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a fun time. It's just a really good, and it's a good multiplayer game. I miss having more stuff like this that you could do full four-player co-op. There's just a lot of great stuff here. Head trauma as a child. I can say that one right away. Yep. He was in a car. Him and his brother Havoc were in a car accident, and that's why he can't control his optic blasts. It's not part of his natural human power. The Phoenix. Oh yeah, the Phoenix. So, and some of the answers are like so obviously wrong if you know anything about X Men. It's Havoc right there. I just mentioned him too.
I want to meet the
Yeah, it's
person who
it's
would guess like who's Cyclops' brother, and they put Wolverine. They put like fucking Wolverine's his brother. Um,
Right, right. Maybe if this was your first exposure to X-Men, I don't know. I don't know. It's possible.
yeah. Okay. Very nice.
Now,
Um,
was this something that you played at all back in the day? Like you're
I
familiar with?
played more. I think I played this one, and then I played the sequel. I played the sequel a lot more, which is the sequel
Okay.
is X-Men Legends 2 and then Apocalypse. Um,
Yeah, and I think that is the superior game between the two.
yeah, and I remember that opening distinctively when they did that cutscene in X-Men Legends 2 when they break into the I do remember that very distinctly
Yeah.
there. And then I moved on to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, when after I
And this
played
was
this.
also Raven Software. That was them. So that they kind of did this trilogy, and then Ultimate Alliance 2 was a different studio, and then 3 was again a different studio. So, but Raven Software did kind of do the trilogy of X-Men Legends 1, 2, and then the Ultimate Alliance.
And
Kind of
Ultimate
capped it off. I
Alliance,
wish they would. The first Ultimate Alliance, they
and
did.
that came in '06.
Oh 06, yeah. And so I guess 04, 05, and 06, they got like a game every year, pretty much.
Yeah, and then the sequel for Marvel Ultimate Alliance came in '09.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was a number of years later, and it's I forget the studio that did the sequel, but it was someone else. It was not Raven.
the sequel here was developed by Vicarious Visions, who did
Oh, okay, okay, interesting.
it's jointly developed by them and then Savage Entertainment, and published by Activision.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
know
yeah.
a third one came out, but I heard mixed things about it. I was excited because it was like, hey, it's another Marvel Ultimate Alliance game, but I then heard it was not all that strong.
I enjoyed it. I'll definitely say I enjoyed it. I would say I probably liked it more than Ultimate Alliance 2, but I think it would come underneath the first one and the two X-Men Legends games. I think it's fun. It's more arcadey than these older ones are. There's a lot less in the way of like especially X Men Legends 2. I think went the hardest on the RPG mechanics, really messing with like stats and builds and having a whole bunch of different powers that you could slot in and out for your character. And Ultimate Alliance 3, it felt a lot more like a kind of an arcade game, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It just is very different. So I think there's an entertainment value there. I played the whole game. I got decently into it, especially just because it's been so long since there'd been a new one. It was also a little weird because it was a Nintendo Switch exclusive, that was kind of odd. Um, these games have always been multi-platform in the past. And then the other thing I'll say about the third one was it was very focused on like MCU synergy. So it was a lot of like Thanos was the villain. They were using the Infinity Stones. It
They
was a
have the
lot of
Guardians of the
the
Galaxy.
Guardians front center, which I don't mind. Hey, throw them in there. Why not? They're popular now. But it was Iron Man, Captain America, Captain Marvel, and you know it's and not to dislike any of those characters. It's just the first Ultimate Alliance and these X Men Legends games. They just felt like they were much more concerned with what can we pull from the comics, how can we adapt stuff from the comics, rather than being a tie into the cartoons at the time or the movies at the time. It was very, let's go into the comics, let's show people another angle of this franchise that they're not going to get from the movies and they're not going to get from the cartoons. That's something that the comics have that we can expose people to in the unique medium of video games. And I still don't think that there has been anything for the X-Men franchise that has showcased like the unique attributes of the characters this well in video game form, at least. Like, yes, we've had that one really great Wolverine game, and we had a good Deadpool game, but like X-Men as a team, right? That the property as a whole, not letting Wolverine take center stage and be the main character. The best as far as like as just being an X-Men game. I still think these two really are kind of the top of the line.
So X-Men Legends here, the game that came out in '04. It says at the time, received generally positive reviews from critics. The Xbox version was the best received, garnering an aggregate scores of 83% and 82 out of 100 on the
That is
review.
the version I played.
Okay, you played the Xbox version there, aggregating websites there, game rankings, and Metacritic, respectively. Reviewers praised Raven's variation on cell shaded graphics due to the success of the game. The sequel was made, X-Men Legends 2, Rise of Apocalypse there. Yeah. And it sold enough copies. This is X-Men Legends 2, Rise of Apocalypse. Sold enough copies to be added to the budget line known as PlayStation 2's greatest hits. As
Mm.
well. So they had that. Um, so I'm looking at a list of best X-Men games here. Do you know what? Can you guess what number one is?
I would think X-Men Legends too, but if it's not, I mean, if it's, yeah, I guess I could see it being X-Men Origins Wolverine. I would personally pick a bone with that and say that's a Wolverine game, not an X-Men game, but that's just me.
X-Men Origins Wolverine is on this list. This is by Game Rant. X-Men Origins Wolverine is number 4, and X-Men Legends is number 2. Uh,
Okay.
Number 1 is X-Men versus Street Fighter. Is number 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That was big in the arcade days.
So you have that one. So yeah. So what would
Mm.
be your score? What would be your rating there for X-Men Legends?
Yeah, I think I think this game holds up pretty well. I think it's still a lot of fun to play. The controls are very smooth. It's aged somewhat visually. Uh, I do think those cel-shaded graphics, I mean, the cutscenes are probably worse, have aged worse than the gameplay. Um, I think this looks pretty good still, and I think it feels pretty good still. It's basic in certain respects, and I wish there was a bit more variety or a bit more interesting uniqueness to the environments you traverse. Um, but I think as far as X-Men games go, man, I think this is still, this and then the sequel are is kind of the best you can do. I'd give this a peak. I'd think I'd give this like a low peak, strong tune in, just
Yeah.
because I think there's room for improvement as evidenced by the sequels, such as the X-Men Legends 2 and then Ultimate Alliance. I think there's room to go up, but I don't think that X-Men has been captured this well in video games since these two games. I really don't. And I wish if anything would get a remake or some sort of sequel from like an old franchise, please put something else out with this. This it's been gone so long. X-Men is having a resurgence right now. Let's get a new X-Men Legends game out there.
Yeah. Because it's not available on any of the updated platforms. You can only get it on the older
No.
ones: GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox.
And,
There.
and I don't even think this first, but the second one is available on PC. I think still today, if you look hard enough, although not official not by like an official website. The first one I don't think was released on PC at all. I don't think you can even get it on PC. Or
Yeah.
if you do, it's like an emulator or something like that.
And it says this was also released on Engage. You remember that? Nokia Engage?
Uh, it was like some tiny little mobile platform, and not something I'm super familiar with. It's kind of like
It was this.
yeah, it's almost like like one of those Sega Game Master things.
Damn. Oh my god, this thing is hideous. A Nokia Engage. Jeez.
Wasn't a
Look,
very popular system, I don't think.
so it's got like what was this? Also like a phone. Also, plus it was like an MP3 player. Damn, all these buttons on
Something
here.
like that.
Oh Jesus Christ! You supposed to play a video game on this?
Yeah, it
Damn.
looks unwieldy,
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh,
which
I
is
guess.
why Sonic is on it. Sonic is unwieldy too.
But yeah, you could. Yeah, if you got a Rocka Nokia Engage, you could also play it on there. If you can. So you give it a peek. For X Men Legends there.
Yeah.
Okay. So a peek from Sage for X Men Legends. Hopefully, there's a remaster of it coming out soon. I think that people would love to see that. I mean, hey, they brought back Marvel vs. Capcom. They're doing that, and they bringing all those games
Yeah.
with it. So maybe they'll do that.
And
Um,
Activision, they published a lot of Marvel games, right? All these Ultimate Alliance, one and two. I don't know about three, but Origins Wolverine, the Deadpool game, yeah, Hulk Ultimate Destruction, the 2005 Punisher. They were like the company that published Marvel games for a long time, and there's a huge catalog of Marvel property video games in general that are totally unavailable unless you go hunt down like a physical copy of them. I'm lucky that I have kept my X-Men Legends in good condition for 20 years now. Because to do this review, I was able to pop it right into my original Xbox and just sit down and play it. But
Yeah,
sadly, that is not an option for a lot of people.
yeah. I remember
Oh, that
playing.
Punisher game is great.
Yeah, I remember playing this Punisher game. Yeah, man, I said I didn't keep a lot of these games. I sold a lot of them. PlayStation and yeah, I used to have the original PlayStation, the PlayStation 2. Yeah, I got rid of it. It's like, yeah, I wish I kept a lot of that stuff.
And
Yeah,
just
this
uppercutting people's heads off.
it's almost like this was kind of like Max Payne a little bit, like because when he have like
Totally.
a berserker mode a little bit, where he would like kind of
That's what
yeah.
that is right there. Is that
Uh,
with the knives out? Yeah, that
okay,
was the berserker mode. And then I mean that game had so much great stuff. We should do a retro review for this at some point. I still got a working copy of that sitting around here somewhere for my
yeah.
old Xbox. You had a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of good stuff in there. Tom Jane was the voice, and it was kind of a tie-in to the movie, but not really. But that to me proved Tom Jane was like a great choice for the character, even if that movie wasn't necessarily the best.
Did you like
Still a
his
really good casting.
Laundry Day? Did you like his short film there?
I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. And then you also had Blade there.
Now this one I never played.
I never played this one either. Yeah, which I wish I would have. I mean, Blade was badass. Yeah,
Hell
remember he
yeah!
put a
I mean, but
chicken do a headlock and stab her right in the fucking head there.
it's surprising
Yeah.
that he hasn't had more video games in general. To be honest, it's like seems like such a perfect character for it.
Well, I mean, Daredevil. Surprised that Daredevil never had a game. His was canceled, right? The Man Without Fear.
Yeah, there was one briefly in development and it was canceled. The only thing I can really remember, I mean, he's in the Ultimate Alliance games, but the only game I can remember playing as Daredevil other than that was like Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects, which is kind of like a 3D fighting game kind of thing. And Daredevil, but it also gave you a little bit more fluid control of the characters, and that could be a lot of fun. Um, yeah, Daredevil deserves a game. Hopefully, not a first person one though. Be hard to see.
I mean, yeah, I think people would like a Batman style Daredevil type game there.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
This is a weird because yeah, this person's got Daredevil, they got Doctor Strange, they got Silver Surfer, and they got Colossus. That's a weird
Oh,
fuck.
that must have been the Ultimate Alliance Gold Edition released on the Xbox 360 that had a handful of extra characters included.
Yeah.
Because I think Colossus was a bonus. Was one of the bonus characters.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Silver Surfer can throw his board there, and okay, do a lot of cool stuff there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, in the comic book, what would Daredevil be doing if like robots or aliens invaded? But guess he'd be
He,
doing something.
yeah, he'd be at least trying. Who
Yeah.
knows how
Hey.
far he gets, but he'd be in the streets at least trying.
Yeah.
Maybe he's on crowd control.
What is batons? Are they made of something special? His stick or batons?
I don't think they're made of any particularly special material. If they are, I either forgot or just somehow never read about that. But I'm pretty sure they're just steel, I think.
Mm, yeah. But yeah.